Hey there everyone, welcome to Pages of Ascension. My name is Tia. Thanks for joining me for this unboxing video. So today I'm going to be covering the In Between Tarot. This is a deck that is by Janine Worthington, and the artwork is done by Franco Rivolli. And this is a little Scarabeo deck. So that being said, it is multilingual, so if you don't speak English, this is going to be the perfect deck for you. The book is formatted a little differently. It doesn't have multiple languages all throughout the book like most Scarabeo decks do. So make sure, of course, when you're purchasing this, depending on what country you're in and what your primary language is in that you do your tarot readings, that you're getting the correct deck, okay? So it is a 78 card deck, and it comes with a book that is 160 pages, and it's in color. Yes, it is in color. The freaking book is in color. Okay. So it's really interesting. This particular deck kind of blindsided me. I actually ended up spending my gas money on this particular deck because I was so drawn to it. But in a nutshell, what the intent was for this particular tarot deck was to bridge that connection between each card in the tarot. So it's kind of that idea of how I'm sure some of you have seen, there's the before tarot that is out on the market, and then there's a deck called the after tarot that is also on the market. Okay, so this idea would be, how do we bridge the, traditional tarot, Rider-Waite, for example, okay, with the before tarot and the after tarot. So what happens in between each of those scenes that are presented in those decks? And that is how effectively this particular deck has been born. I really like this deck in particular, at least just the concept of it, because I'm someone who, that's how I do my readings. Like when I pour down the cards on the table, it's not this card means this and this card means that. It's not that. It is a story for me. I see it as a story. And that is what the intent for this particular deck was. And I love the concept. I am super into these cards. Like, I've got a little bit of a lady crush on this deck right now, to be honest. So yeah. So for those of you who are new to my unboxing videos, I will go through and do the usual spiel, if you will. So I will show each one of the cards, and then I shuffle on camera and I draw one card. In that particular card, I will actually read what's the entirety of the description of that card in the book that comes with the deck, okay? Did I mention the book is in color? I'm really, really happy about that. So, yeah, this is like, even from the moment I took it out of the box, I knew that this is a powerful deck. This is probably going to be one of the most powerful decks that I read with, just because of that concept of how it's, tying things together. And that really flows and resonates for me for how I read the tarot. I've been playing with the tarot since I was about 8 years old. I'm in my mid-30s now. So I've got a pretty solid background on the tarot and how they're connected. And this is something that is actually mentioned in the book. And that is that a working knowledge of the tarot is helpful. This is definitely a little bit more of an advanced deck, but it's not per se necessary. If you have a good grasp on the tarot, this is one that could actually work for you as well. I do want to point out one thing about this deck that just blew my freaking mind, okay? And that is legitimately how inclusive this deck is. So there's an entire suit in this deck that is nothing but women. Okay, it's nothing but feminine energy. The queens are not always portrayed as a feminine energy in this deck. I want to say outside of the deck that is nothing but feminine energy, they actually show masculine energy for the queen suit, okay? And then there's this editor's note down here, which, like, I have to actually read it to you because it blew my mind and it just made me so proud that there's someone out there who not only invested this time to make this tool for people like me who use the cards to help people, but that they were also cognizant enough that the world does not necessarily look the same as it did when, Rider Waite first came out and Golden Dawn came out, and that pronouns are kind of an issue. Okay, they are, like, using the proper pronouns to make sure that you're not excluding people from a message, especially for me, is very important. Those of you who've been watching me for some time know that I make a point to say that I do watch my pronouns. Of course, I'm human, I screw up, but my heart is in the right place and I do make a concentrated effort. So I do want to read this editor's note to you before we start going through the cards. Okay, it says, we have been concerned on how to express the figures of the reader and the querent as gender neutral and as much inclusive as possible. In the end, we decided to refer to both with the female gender using she and her. This was not to imply that the reader or the querent are female and should not be intended in any sexist way, but rather it was done to convey a sense of inclusiveness we felt the male gender would not have granted. First of all, the fact that they're even willing to acknowledge that, and not just acknowledge it within the book, but it's literally acknowledged on like the first main page. That's the editor's note. The first main page. So we're on page 5 here, right? We've got, of course, the cover page. We've got, the copyright when it was printed, which is in 2019. So it came out this year. I'm actually doing this in 2019. We've got our table of contents and bam, dedication and the editor's note. So I think that that's freaking amazing. And I've got so much respect for, an artist and an author who takes the time to just acknowledge that actually matters to people. Okay. So we'll go through the book here. Oh my gosh. We'll go through the book here more in a minute. Let's go ahead and go through the cards. I know we're 7 minutes deep. So this is going to be a little bit longer of an unboxing. I try to keep them below 15 minutes or below. But I'm so in love with this deck. So I might talk a little bit more than normal. So we have our typical insert cards in tarot decks. We've got Tarosophy, that's a tarot society effectively. This is actually a coupon that came in this. You can get 15% off for an annual membership with them, which is not something I've actually ever noticed before, so I actually might go and check that out because this is kind of my craft. And then we've got the insert card that is the picture of the deck. And this could actually be used as a Joker card, but I would be a little bit cognizant of that because this is actually the card that's between the Emperor and the Hierophant. Excuse me, in this deck, and I'll make sure I point that out to you when it comes up. It looks exactly the same with the exception of the writing. So you could use this as a Joker card if you wanted to. The back looks exactly the same as the other cards. So they're wouldn't be an issue doing that if that's something that you add in your tarot. Here is the back of the card. Now that I'm mentioning that, it's got the Ouroboros. I'm totally pronouncing it wrong, but effectively it's the snake that's eating its tail. Okay, and that is symbolism, quite frankly, ancient symbolism that talks about the cycle of death and rebirth. Okay, this is another representation of infinity. Okay, sometimes you'll see a dragon, sometimes you'll see a snake. They chose to do a snake in this one, so there's that, which is super cool. Okay. Did I mention that I have a lady crush on these? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go through all of the cards. Sometimes I talk, sometimes I don't. Let's pull this a little closer to make sure that you get a good view. And here we go. Starting with the Fool. So these are in order. All I've done is my cleansing ritual on these. I have not actually used them for a personal reading yet. And when I say personal reading, I mean reading for myself, not reading for a client. So they are in order. And my finger is just covering everything. Okay, so now I know to grab from the corner. Okay, so here's that card I was talking about. This is the namesake card. This is the card that you see that is on the front of the box, and that's also in this insert card that could be used as a joker card. Again, I'd be very careful of that, especially if you don't always pay too close attention to detail. You might miss this as your joker card, but again, if that's something that you're into, you can do that. Okay, so yeah, this is the Emperor card in this deck. I just realized how like super janky my nails are. No judgment. I really like the way that this card is portrayed. That's amazing. But of course, like the true representation for me of how a card is, how a deck, the energy of a deck, I always find how the death is represented. And this is like the furthest thing from being a macabre death card that I have ever seen. You've got the angel in the background, you've got the phoenix quite literally rising. Just freaking beautiful. And you've got temperance in the background with the angel. This is probably the most interesting portrayal of temperance that I've ever seen, though. And at some point, when I actually go through and use these cards on camera for readings, I'll go a little bit more into that. But it is interesting how, from the get, they're tying in the devil energy and how that takes a part in learning temperance. So it's like learning patience and knowing your triggers despite having all of those triggers in your face. Throwing stones when you live in a glass house, that type of thing. I mean, quite literally. So the sequence of those three cards, yeah, freaking amazing. So yeah, I don't know how new these cards are exactly when they went into distribution. It was this year, 2019. I don't even know if there's any other unboxing videos on this deck, but this, I don't know, where has it been all my life? That's kind of what I'm feeling right now, because it's just, the imagery is amazing. The thematic themes of it are just amazing. Wow. It's a lot to take in. This deck had a lot of heart and effort put into it. A lot of heart and effort put into it. So, yeah. And it's obvious in the artwork and the quality of the cards. Okay, here's the World card. So this is the last card of the Major Arcana. Now we're going to get into our suits. So we have Cup suit, which is all themed from the continent of Africa. This is probably the second most beautiful portrayal of the Four of Cups that I've ever seen. The first one being in the Tarot of Dreams, the way that particular Four of Cups is portrayed. That's just amazing. I learned on the Rider-Waite system. I have a deep appreciation for the Rider-Waite system, but I like the way that authors and artists are now taking a slightly shifted viewpoint and approach to how they're making the decks and representing the energy. Just amazing. Okay, and the 10. And we have the page. Yep, that's the Page of Cups. So here's what I was talking about when I said the queens were represented by masculine energy, what appears to be masculine energy. I think it's alluding more to the balance between masculine and feminine energy. I actually really like the way that the queens are portrayed. It's a little different. It's something that I've never seen before in a tarot deck. And it just goes to show again that there is a lot of thought that was put into this deck. And they even go so far as to describe in the book the process that was gone through to bring this deck into creation. So if this is a deck that you're interested in and you end up purchasing this, I would highly suggest reading this book from cover to cover. There's a lot of information in there. Okay, now we're on coins. So this is the suit that is entirely feminine energy, or women as they're portrayed in here. Portrayed. I can talk. So yeah, the focus is definitely on the suffragist. I always pronounce this word wrong. But effectively the women's movement, the initial original women's movement, way back when. Suffragette. I don't want to keep saying and pronouncing it wrong. Just beautiful. So we're about 18 minutes into this video. If you've made it this far in the unboxing, I would definitely appreciate a little love in the form of a like. It helps the channel, helps keep me inspired to make these videos, because it does cost money to buy these decks. I am not a rich lady yet. And again, I have my own reasons for doing these unboxing videos, and at some point I'll make a video talking about that. But yeah, oh my god, and the progression, oh my god, I didn't even notice that the first time I flipped through these. Beautiful. Okay, it is absolutely worth the cost of this deck. I think it was about $40, almost $40 that I paid for this particular deck. Like I said, it was a tank of gas for me. So yeah, about $40. It'll knock a hole in $40. So we're now in the wand suit. which is very carnival, steampunkish. You move my big fat hand there. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to not have my finger get in the way of that because the sides here tell you about the card that came before it and the card that comes after it. So it lets you know which in-between scene you're looking at for each individual card. So I'm trying really hard not to put my fat finger on top of that so y'all can see it. Just the story that this deck tells is mind blown. Mind freaking blown. Oh my gosh. Okay. Did I mention I have a crush on this deck? Okay, so this is it for the wand suit. Now we are moving into the sword suit, which has a very Roman, Spartan energy to it. It's a very masculine suit. And there I go with the fat finger again. So a suit with nothing but women, a suit with nothing but men, and a suit with them portrayed together. Amazing. And basically a suit that refers to rural life, as it does with the cups suit. Yeah, the sword suit in this is very intense. The imagery is very intense. All right, and our last card. So for the king, queen, page, and knight, it shows the progression from the page to the king and then reflects back on how the page connects to the king. And that's in every single suit. So, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. This is the first time I've shuffled this deck. So we will give these a good shuffle. And it doesn't look like, from what I've read in the book, that there was the intent for reversals for this. However, you know, each reader is their own, and some people might do reversals. I am likely not going to do reversals with this deck when I actually do start using it in public, just because it doesn't feel right. I think there's a lot of imagery on each card, and the general intention that was set when this deck was made. It's just the themes of it. I don't think it's necessary to do reversals, but some people like the reversals, so thought I would throw that out there. Okay, so they're not super duper shuffled like I like, but enough for us to draw a card. So unfortunately, they're not wide enough for me to really do the side shuffle properly like I like. So I will probably, yeah, so it gets kind of messy doing it that way. So I'll probably do it the long-handed way, but the nice thing is that they are long enough that they fit in my hands just fine. I can do that. So the card stock is good. It is very flexible. I think these will wear down very well, as most little Scarabeo cards do. Yeah, I don't think there'll be any issues with there. No issues with marking. I mean, as per usual, I don't think I've ever purchased a little Scarabeo deck and had it come out anything less than flawless. And that's an honest testament to the quality of their work and their manufacturing, even if they're not printed in the country. There's these, every deck I have by Scarabeo, and I've got several that has been produced through this company. They all look flawless straight out the box. So, for those of you out there, I don't think you're going to run into an issue with the manufacturing making them stick together or like marking before you even get to use them or anything like that. I don't feel like you're going to have to deal with any of that. Some decks are so mass produced that quality control literally goes down the toilet, and I've just never experienced that with these types of decks. So I don't think it's going to begin now. Okay, so we got the Queen of Coins as the card that came out. So that's what I'm going to read in its entirety out of the book. So let's go ahead and talk about the book. I know this is going to be, again, like I said, a longer video. We're already hitting 26 minutes. I will get to the point, I swear. So we went through the first couple of pages. We get into chapter 1. So it's the introduction to this idea of the in-between tarot. Janine talks about like the concept, how it came about, you know, and even goes into, and I've actually never heard of this guy before, but Anathias Kircher was a German Jesuit scholar and a polymath. I like anybody who's a polymath because I'm a polymath. And it basically goes on to say, with I guess some theories or the concept that he studied in particular was magnetism, and how that kind of ties into this idea of the Buddhist theory of reincarnation. This page right here is a very interesting read. I'm not going to go into that because this is an unboxing video, but you know, to let you know that's in there. That's something you want to look up. And then Jane talks about intuition, how it's, you know, it's helpful to have a working knowledge or previous knowledge of the cards. I mean, it has its own page that's been dedicated to it, but that it's, of course, not necessary. Talks about the elements, the cycles within each card. It talks about the use of numerology and the use of symbols. Like this, there's a lot of thought put into this book. So even if you are someone who is well-versed in using the tarot, like myself, you've been using it for years, there is even still something that you can learn from actually going through this book. This is not your ordinary tarot deck, okay? So I would definitely suggest anybody who is looking at getting this particular deck to actually take the time to go through the book. There's a lot of effort put into it. There's a lot of information in here, and it's worth it. It's freaking rad. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the Queen of Coins. Okay. Whoopsie. Too far. Not far enough. There we go. Okay, so the Queen of Coins stands for... Oops. One more page. There we go. The in-between of the Queen and King. That is not the card, right side of the card. Okay, King and Queen. Okay, so it states... the source cards for this card are the Queen of Coins and the King of Coins. The Queen of Coins keywords are material comforts and prosperity. The King of Coins keywords are discipline and provider. The in-between concept is becoming the breadwinner. Okay. It says this woman, the woman is now back in the factory with the baby she has given birth to strapped to her back. She is working on the production line. This card shows that she is carrying out her motherly duties and at the same time having to be the king and provide for the family. The movement from the Queen of Coins to the King of Coins shows someone who is now self-sufficient and who has to take on more of a leadership role. She is now working as a foreman in the factory and guiding other people in their role as workers. She also still has to carry out her motherly duties, as there is no one else to help her. This in-between state shows the ultimate in responsibility. The transition is a hefty and demanding one, but one where she can feel ultimately in control of her material existence. And that's it for the explanation of the card. Very, very well done. So this may actually end up being my single parent card because of the way that this is portrayed. I'm going to prime the deck and we'll see how that works out. So there's more in the book once we get past the actual individual cards themselves and their explanation. Janine goes through single card ratings, talks about a particular spread, actually offers that to the reader if you want to do that for yourself or for your clients. The next step method, and so this just looks to be another spread that you can do. I'm not going to go into reading that right now. This speaks to a larger spread. This is a yearly spread you can actually do with this particular deck. I might actually do that for myself just to see. And then reversals are actually addressed in this book. So you can use reversals in this book or in this deck. That is something that was kind of built into them. The way she refers to it is reversals can also be seen as an energy which is not quite yet manifested or made itself known, or it can just be the opposite. So again, this is going to kind of depend on how you view reversals as a reader. There's effectively 3 different ways to do that. It's either the reversal of the energy or the inverse of the energy. It is the stagnation of that energy or something that doesn't happen or that won't happen, like a blockage. Let's see here. Or the opposite, if that makes sense. So, see here. She goes into exploring the next steps, different ways you can add other decks to it. We have a little page about her. This is the author, Janine. Thank you, Janine, for making this deck. This is freaking awesome. And then we've got the artist here, Venetian born Franco. And then we've got area for personal notes. If you want to add them into this book, you've got a little bit of space to do that as well. I typically don't use that. That's interesting. I typically don't use stuff like that that's in the book. I have my own separate journals that I use when I'm priming particular decks. So yeah, there's that. So this is the In-Between Tarot by Janine Worthington and Franco Rivolli. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, if you have this deck, especially if you have this deck, go ahead and comment down below. How do you use it? How do you like it? How do you not like it? I'm curious to know what you think, and your comments will definitely help other people who are considering this deck, okay? And if you did find this video helpful, I would appreciate a like. Again, it really does help the channel. It helps keep me inspired to make these videos. And last but not least, don't forget to subscribe, because I do these videos all the time. So there is more where this came from. Okay. So thank you for joining me. I've got gratitude for each and every one of you. And I will see you next time. Bye, y'all.